Every now and again, there's a new model that comes to market that just stands out. It's different, it draws the eye, it makes people stop and look twice. And this right here is one of those machines. It's Yamaha's new XSR900 GP. I've spent the day in the saddle on road and track, and I'm going to tell you all about it. So before I get into the riding experience, I just want to talk over the look of it, some of the key features, because that's what this bike is all about. It's all about drawing the eye, grabbing attention, and making you want a piece of this. Underneath it all is essentially an MT09, but the dress, the look of it is something that's been crafted off the back of decades and decades worth of Yamaha innovation. So the key influence to this bike's design are motorcycles such as the YZR500, FZRs, FZs, XJRs. Yamaha were trying to explain during the presentation of the model that actually it's an amalgamation of all these machines. It's not meant to be representative of any singular bike, but just an amalgamation of that period, almost 30 years ago, an era that they call their golden era of GP. And I think they've really nailed the brief. What they've produced here is a bike that really stands out. So obviously you've got this fairing that harks back to that 80s, 90s era. It looks old, the half fairing as well. It's been put there by design to kind of stand out in a contemporary world as something that is different. You've got a couple of R-clips, like as per on a race bike, to secure everything in. It's just super trick, super detailed. You look at the top yoke, everything's just harking back to that golden time. And I personally love that. The weird thing is, I mean, I'm 37, and this bike is representative of an era probably around the time I was born. But even to me, I'm looking at it thinking, do you know what? I like that. So some of the other cool features on it, just to talk about the design, you've got this long tank here. So as I said, the actual base of this model is the MT09, but this tank is a lot longer. So it's still 14 litres in capacity, but it's longer and it's sculpted to kind of reflect tanks again of the 80s and 90s. You kind of got that hook to put your knee into there. And the thing was that when they produced this tank, it influenced significant change elsewhere in the bike. So because it was so long, what that meant is it put the rider further back. And because the rider was further back, what it meant was with this seat unit here, which is similar to the XSR900 that came before it, but obviously with this cowling at the rear, what it meant was basically the rear wheel was sitting further forward. So they decided that this machine needed to have a longer swing arm. So they actually introduced the same swing arm as what you find on the Tracer 9, which is that little bit longer. It's 55mm longer than the unit you'll find on the MT09, for example. Brought the bike kind of back in proportion, aesthetically looks the part. And like I say, coming back to it all, that's all because they wanted this tank to look right. A lot of the bolts, a lot of the fixings, they're kind of drilled, again, race-esque, and especially representative of, you know, I keep harking back to it, but that era. The aesthetics aside, what's different between this machine and an XSR 900 2022 spec? The frame is slightly differently braced. It's a little bit stiffer. They've altered the rigidity ever so slightly with some different mounts and whatnot. And one of the other big differences is to the handlebars. So on an XSR, you've just got straight bars. On this, you've got clip-ons, albeit top yoke mounted, but you've got clip-ons. Down here, you've got rear sets, which have also been moved further rearward, raised further upwards, multi-point positions for these, so you can put them lower or higher by two places. So the bars sit you lower up at the front and the pegs sit higher and more rearward. And what that has done is it's induced a more sporty front end bias riding position. To counter that, what Yamaha's also done is they've changed the seat height. So the seat height's now up at 835mm, that little bit taller. But ultimately, yeah, they've made this thing more sports bike focused than, I guess, a naked bike, which is what the XSR900 2022 spec is. So the same but different, I guess, is the message. And at the heart of it all, you've got the new CP3 Euro 5 Plus engine, which again is exactly as you'd find in the MT-09. So it makes 93 Newton meters of torque, 119 brake horsepower, one of the best engines on the market, and a very, very common denominator in a lot of contemporary sub-litre capacity Yamahas right now. Stonking engine, they're making the most of it. It's perfect fit for this machine. So you're in good hands. So another difference between this and the XSR is you've also got the 5-inch TFT full colour dash. And with that, you've got a raft of rider aids that, again, you didn't have on the XSR before. So with the new dash, you've got a new 6-axis IMU. You've got 3 different YRC settings, sport, street and range, as well as 2 customizable settings that allow you to go into the dash and alter away to your heart's content. Or you can go into another menu on the dash and actually just decide to switch off altogether traction control, wheelie control, whatever. You can just completely deplete that from the system in one foul hit. So great technology, you're in safe hands. The only thing you can't switch off is the ABS. So another big change is to the suspension. So the forks are a little bit longer. The rear shock is actually a little bit softer. But yeah, the internals of the forks have been changed. They've been optimized to suit this package. This machine weighs in wet, and that's full tank, that's air in the tires, that's everything at 200 kg. It's fully adjustable at the front end and the rear end. But the point is that the suspension has also upped its game to make the most of this package. It's been really well thought out. I love the look of it. But what about the riding experience? As I said, we've had a day in the saddle. We started off with about an hour road ride to Estoril Circuit, did some stuff on track, and then spent about another 4 or 5 hours out on the roads. So the first thing to kind of get across is that it's so much more accommodating than you might think. You hear the word rear sets, you hear the word clip-ons, and you think it's going to be tight, it's going to be compact, it's not going to be accommodating. But I think Yamaha knew straight away, you know, they're targeting this bike at people maybe in their 40s, their 50s or whatever. It needed to be comfortable first and foremost, and that's exactly what it is. I was very impressed first time I got on it with just how relaxed the bars were for me. Like I say, they sit above the yokes, so nice broad bars, not necessarily awkward on your wrist or whatever. The actual natural riding experience of this bike sits you quite upright. The knee angle is relatively relaxed. If you were to compare this to something like an R6, that's a completely different kettle of fish. That thing folds you in half. This thing here, plenty of leg room, nice comfy seat to kind of perch yourself on. There's nothing to worry about from an ergonomics point of view. So I just wanted to address that first. I had high hopes for the riding experience. And at the heart of this machine is that CP3 motor. It's absolutely fantastic. I could harp on all day about how torquey it is, how linear the power delivery is. It's got great induction noise, fantastic exhaust noise. It's just such a solid motor. And I've got no complaints in that respect. I think the fact that the gearbox is good on it as well. You're also aided by a shifter and blipper system, and it's like a multi-directional advanced system, which means that you can accelerate while going down the box, and you can decelerate while going up the box if you wanted to. It just works in a peculiar way, but it works fantastically. You know, if you're planning an overtake and you want to be going down the box to kind of really get the most of that acceleration, you can do that whilst on the throttle, and away you go. One of my early concerns as well was the fact that this bike does have a 1500mm wheelbase. So that's quite long. For perspective, I think an R6 is about 1380 or something like that. So compared to a sports bike, it is a lot longer, and even compared to the MT-09, it's 55mm longer, but it didn't impede the riding. I learned very soon it's quite an easy bike to pitch around, get into a corner, also very stable. I like the feel and the feedback through the suspension. It was very trusting. This bike, I should say, is kitted on Bridgestone S23 tyres, which really have been fantastic today. So on the photo shoot, sometimes you'd pull up, your tyres would be going cold or go cold, and it's like, okay, off you go, fast as you can around this bend. This thing will go straight to knee down, you know, by the first corner, and keep you in one piece, I should add to that. You know, I had so much faith in the package. I had good feel through the suspension. It was easy to kind of pull a trajectory and get exactly online, you know, and like I say, throughout all of it, I was impressed by just how stable the package is. There's a great frame underneath this. As mentioned, it's been altered a little bit to suit this package compared to the MT-09 and the XSR before, but it doesn't feel like a long wheelbase bike, but that's exactly what it is. It was also quite good at slower stuff. So at the start of the day, we spent quite a bit of time just managing our way through some town traffic and all that kind of stuff. So you're doing a bit of steering and all the rest of it. It didn't feel awkward, didn't feel heavy on the front wheel or any of that kind of stuff. Nice and easy to guide exactly where you wanted it to be. And like I say, you get crack in the whip and this thing just comes in line. It's a nice bike. And I think that point was hammered home when we got on track. So again, unfortunately, we weren't able to do the full Estoril circuit in one flow. We'd kind of get to a point and they'd say, right, stop here, wait your turn, and off you go. And you'd be flat out into a corner, asking so much from these tyres and the bike, and it would just deliver. It was such an easy motorcycle to place, to have faith in. And that was a great opportunity for me to experience just what you're dealing with this bike here. Good handling, faith inspiring, the job's a good one. It's also a lot of fun. I'm going to talk about wheelies because I like wheelies, and I do a lot of wheelies. So again, that wheelbase, that little bit longer, I did have some concern that this bike was going to struggle a little bit more to hook them up. So typically, the longer the wheelbase, the harder it is to get the front wheel lofted. In truth, yeah, it was a little bit noticeable. What I found was that you had to kind of get the bike around 4,000 RPM, really ping the clutch, hoist the thing up. But as soon as it was up, it was fantastic. You could kind of go up through 1 or 2 gears, or I could go up through 1 or 2 gears with this thing just lofted. There was a nice balancing point. It was a lot of fun. You know, I mean, again, this bike hasn't been designed like the MT to be a bit of a hooligan machine. It's there to be representative of that golden era of sports bikes. But to me, it was a hooligan bike. I did have a lot of fun. Maybe on track, I found that the braking maybe wasn't as strong as I hoped it would be. I mean, I say all that, this bike's got a great 16mm Brembo radial master cylinder on it and some good anchors as well, some good 4-putt calipers down below. But I don't know whether it's the pad or what. I mean, I've said this point before on Yamahas, just felt a little bit kind of weak and wooden. So one thing I would be doing if I owned this bike, I'd be changing those pads, looking for a little bit more bite. What I did also find was that I had the ABS kicking in quite a bit when I was squeezing hard. And I should say, when I'm squeezing hard on track, you know, I really am squeezing hard versus when I was on the road, never really noticed the ABS at all. You can't switch the ABS off, so that's something that's worth noting. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't a problem on the road. And when we got back on the road and we had, like I say, 4 or 5 hours or whatever thereafter, to keep riding the bike, I relaxed into the package. I was able to appreciate it from a purely road-going point of view. It was a nice, chilled, easy-going machine to ride. I felt relaxed. I felt comfortable. This screen does a good job of kind of keeping the wind probably up to about your neckline, off of your torso and whatnot. This seat, after a while, I mean, it's actually a firmer seat, is probably fair to say. You know, you wanted to have a shuffle around on it, but, you know, other than that, I mean, it is, you know, you ride any bike for that duration of time, especially a sports bike, and you're going to have those kind of niggles. So it is what it is. I like the switch gears. Took a little bit of time to kind of adjust to the new paddle, what they call it, a seesaw shift on this here for the indicators. A few times kind of hit the horn, hit the hazards that are down below it. But the actual switch gears are good. Easy access to the menu. The dash is like, well, as good as you can get right now, realistically. It's got full connectivity with phones, with all that kind of stuff, with sat-navs. Great technology on it, easy to access. I like the fact on the right-hand bar, you've got the mode menus, just toggle through the modes on the go. The only thing you can't do on the go is go into the YRC settings and actually change stuff. So if you want to take wheelie control off or whatever, you can't do that on the fly. You've got to kind of pull over and stop. But it is one of those things. It's not the end of the world. You can always stop, tweak away. What you can do with Yamaha's app is actually change the settings for the bike while you're parked up, having a coffee or whatever on your phone. So that's quite a cool feature, should you want to. But like I say, I'm talking about the tech of this bike. The thing is, it's almost a confusing proposition because on the one hand, I'm admiring it for its traditional beauty. It's just such a nice bike to look at. I've really enjoyed taking in all the details of the package throughout the whole of the day. But at the same time, I am judging it as a contemporary 2024 machine, because that's exactly what it is. And I think it does a very good job at ticking both of those boxes. So aesthetics, they nailed the brief completely. But underneath all that, you've got the hardware, you've got the software that actually backs up what people want now. I dare say, if you had an FZR and you had one of these, you would be 10 times more drawn to this machine than an FZR, because this handles, it stops, it's got the tech, it's got all those lovely features, cruise control, you name it, it's got it all the modern stuff that you actually want, you know, like I say, as well as handling, stopping, all the rest of it. And that's the beauty of this package. You can have your cake and eat it. I've really enjoyed it. It's priced at just over 12.5 grand in the UK. It's going to be available on the market very soon. And I can't wait to actually get back out on one of these bikes. I can't wait to just look at one. Like I say, there's so much to take in. Yamaha have done something that's pretty special here. They've maybe stepped out of their comfort zone. It's probably why it took a little bit longer for them to make this thing come to fruition. But I applaud them for what they've done. And I wouldn't be surprised if other brands follow suit. But in the first instance, right now, I just want to say thank you to Yamaha, because this thing right here is a corker. I think it's going to sell pretty damn well.